Most lies do not sound cruel. They sound kind, gentle, reasonable. That is why they are so effective. Marcus Aurelius understood that the most dangerous lies are not spoken by others, but whispered by the self. And the most convincing of these lies are wrapped in compassion. I deserve rest. I need to protect my energy. I'm just being kind to myself. These phrases sound healthy, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they hide something else. Avoidance. Self-care in its original sense was meant to preserve strength, to restore clarity, to maintain stability. Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of care through reflection, discipline, and restraint. But modern self-care often asks for the opposite. It asks you to step away from discomfort, to validate every feeling, to soften every edge, and slowly the meaning shifts. Care becomes permission, permission to avoid effort, permission to excuse reaction, permission to delay growth. This shift is subtle, because the language remains gentle. No one says, I'm avoiding responsibility. They say, I'm honoring my boundaries. No one says, I don't want to face this. They say, I'm prioritizing my mental health. Marcus Aurelius would not have rejected compassion, but he would have questioned where it leads. Does it restore strength, or does it protect weakness? This is the uncomfortable distinction. True care makes you more capable. False care makes you more fragile. Most people never examine this difference because the language feels moral, and anything framed as kindness feels difficult to challenge. But kindness without honesty quickly becomes indulgence, and indulgence, over time, erodes respect. Marcus Aurelius believed that the self must be guided, not constantly comforted, because comfort soothes symptoms, but guidance addresses cause. When discomfort arises, there are two possible responses. One strengthens you, the other numbs you. Modern culture overwhelmingly encourages the second, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of appearing demanding, fear of emotional discomfort, fear of being misunderstood. So self-care becomes a shield, a way to withdraw without admitting retreat. And because it sounds virtuous, it goes unquestioned. This is the lie that sounds kind, that you must always feel good to be healthy. Marcus Aurelius would have disagreed. He believed that health of the mind often requires temporary discomfort, not suffering for its own sake, but effort for the sake of integrity. In the next part, we will explore when compassion turns into excuse, and how understanding yourself can quietly become permission to stagnate. Pause here. Notice which phrases you use to protect yourself, then continue. Compassion is necessary. Without it, the mind becomes harsh, rigid, unforgiving. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He did not believe in cruelty toward the self, but he also did not believe in endless leniency, because there is a line where compassion quietly turns into excuse, and that line is crossed when understanding replaces responsibility. Modern language makes this easy. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" people ask, "Why do I feel this way?" This question feels deep, psychological, insightful, but it can become a trap, because explanation can replace correction. Once you understand your behavior, you may feel absolved from changing it. I react this way because of my past. I avoid conflict because of my personality. I struggle with discipline because of stress. These explanations are often accurate, but accuracy does not equal resolution. Marcus Aurelius would have accepted explanation without allowing it to become justification. He understood that causes explain behavior, but they do not excuse surrendering control. Compassion without correction creates stagnation. You become very understanding of yourself and completely unchanged. This is where self-care becomes dangerous, not because care is wrong, but because it is incomplete. It soothes without strengthening. It comforts without challenging. And over time, this imbalance produces fragility. You begin to treat discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. But discomfort is often a signal that something is required. Effort, attention, discipline. Marcus Aurelius believed that difficulty is not an enemy. It is a teacher. But modern compassion often shields you from the lesson. You withdraw, you rest, you postpone. And sometimes rest is necessary. But when rest becomes the default response to any inner resistance, growth stops. The mind learns that discomfort is something to be avoided, not examined. This creates dependency. Dependency on feeling ready, on feeling safe, on feeling motivated. Marcus Aurelius did not wait to feel ready. He acted according to principle, because waiting for comfort is an endless delay. True compassion does not ask, "How can I avoid this?" It asks, "How can I meet this without breaking?" This is a harder question, and that is why it is often ignored. In the next part, we will confront why modern culture redefines weakness as healing, and why this confusion feels so convincing. Pause here. Ask yourself honestly, where have I understood myself deeply and changed nothing? Then continue. Healing is necessary. Without healing, wounds remain open. Patterns repeat. Pain leaks into everything. Marcus Aurelius would not have dismissed healing, but he would have been deeply suspicious of how the word is used today, because healing has slowly been redefined to mean the absence of effort. Any behavior that reduces discomfort is labeled healing. Any avoidance of pressure is called self-protection. And any refusal to face difficulty is reframed as wisdom. This redefinition feels compassionate, but it carries a hidden cost. Weakness and healing are not the same thing. Healing restores function. Weakness avoids demand. Healing increases capacity. Weakness lowers standards. The problem is that both can feel similar in the short term. Both bring relief. Both reduce tension, but only one prepares you for what comes next. Marcus Aurelius believed that healing should make a person more capable of life, not more insulated from it. If a process makes you more fragile, more avoidant, more dependent on comfort, it is not healing. It is retreat. Modern culture often celebrates this retreat with soft language, with reassuring explanations, with endless validation. You're not ready. Don't push yourself. Listen to your feelings. Sometimes, this advice is appropriate. But when it becomes universal, it produces paralysis. People begin to interpret any resistance as a warning sign, any discomfort as damage, any demand as harm. Marcus Aurelius would have rejected this framework, not because he believed in cruelty, but because he believed in resilience. He understood that the mind, like the body, grows through engagement with difficulty, not trauma, not overload, but measured challenge. Without challenge, strength atrophies. And when strength atrophies, people begin to fear life itself. They confuse peace with isolation, safety with stagnation, healing with hiding. This confusion is seductive because it feels moral. No one wants to be seen as harsh. No one wants to demand more, especially from themselves. So weakness is renamed. It becomes sensitivity. It becomes burnout. It becomes boundaries. Again, these concepts are not false. But when they are used to justify permanent avoidance, they lose their integrity. Marcus Aurelius believed that healing must be followed by discipline. Otherwise, healing becomes an identity. I am healing becomes I am exempt. Exempt from pressure, exempt from correction, exempt from growth, and exemption feels comforting until reality returns. Because reality does not adjust its demands to match your language. In the next part, we will explore how comfort language slowly destroys standards and why a culture that avoids judgment eventually loses direction. Pause here. Ask yourself quietly, has my idea of healing made me stronger or simply more protected? Then continue. Language shapes perception, and perception shapes behavior. Marcus Aurelius understood that long before modern psychology. He knew that how you speak to yourself determines what you tolerate. Modern culture has changed its language around effort, discipline, and failure. Not abruptly, gradually. Words that once pointed toward growth have been softened. Expectations have been reframed as pressure, standards as oppression, discomfort as harm. This shift did not happen by accident. It happened because comfort is easier to sell than responsibility. When language removes judgment, standards quietly disappear. Not through rebellion, but through erosion. No one says, "You must do better." They say, "Be gentle with yourself." No one says, "This behavior is weakening you." They say, "You're doing the best you can." These phrases are not false, but when they are never balanced with correction, they become disabling. Marcus Aurelius believed that standards are an act of care, not cruelty. A standard is a direction. It tells you where to aim. Without standards, everything becomes subjective. And when everything is subjective, nothing demands effort. Comfort language removes friction. It smooths edges, reduces tension, prevents discomfort. But friction is where growth occurs. Without friction, nothing sharpens. The danger is not that people become kinder. The danger is that they become less capable. When standards disappear, self-respect weakens. Because self-respect depends on expectation. You respect yourself when you expect something from yourself. When expectation is removed, respect has nothing to attach to. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against becoming indulgent with his own character. He knew that indulgence felt like mercy, but resulted in decay. A culture that avoids standards produces individuals who feel fragile. They require constant reassurance, constant validation, constant protection. And because protection replaces challenge, confidence never develops. This creates a paradox. People speak more about empowerment, yet feel less empowered. They speak more about safety, yet feel more anxious. They speak more about healing, yet feel increasingly unprepared for life. Marcus Aurelius would have recognized this immediately. He would have said, "When standards die, so does direction, and without direction, the mind drifts." In the next part, We will confront emotional validation without correction and why being endlessly understood can quietly destroy growth. Pause here. Notice the language you use to excuse yourself. Then continue. Validation feels comforting. To be understood, to be heard, to have your feelings acknowledged. Marcus Aurelius would not have dismissed this need. He understood that emotion ignored often turns into resentment. But he also understood something more difficult. Validation without correction does not heal. It pacifies. Modern culture has elevated validation to the highest good. If someone feels something, it must be affirmed. If someone reacts, it must be explained. If someone struggles, it must be normalized. Again, none of this is inherently wrong. But when validation becomes the end point, growth quietly stops. Because validation removes tension, and tension is what signals that change is needed. Marcus Aurelius believed that emotion should be acknowledged and then guided, not endlessly reflected. If you only mirror emotion back to itself, it becomes self-reinforcing. Anger feeds anger. Anxiety feeds anxiety. Avoidance feeds avoidance. Validation tells the mind, this state is acceptable. Correction asks a harder question. Is this state useful? Modern thinking often avoids this question because it feels judgmental. But judgment is not cruelty. It is discernment. Without discernment, every emotion carries equal authority. And when every emotion has authority, none can be questioned. This is how people become trapped inside their feelings. They feel deeply, but think shallowly. Marcus Aurelius refused to grant emotions final say. He listened, then decided. This distinction is crucial. Listening without deciding is abdication. It feels caring, but it leaves the mind ungoverned. Emotional validation without correction creates a loop. You feel something. It is affirmed. Nothing changes. Over time, this loop becomes identity. I am anxious. I am sensitive. I am overwhelmed. These statements stop being descriptions and become conclusions. And once something is concluded, effort seems pointless. Marcus Aurelius believed that clarity comes from tension, not from comfort. The tension between feeling and reason, between impulse and principle. Without this tension, the mind becomes indulgent, not peaceful, indulgent. Indulgence feels kind in the moment, but it leaves you less prepared. Preparedness is the true measure of care. If care leaves you unable to endure difficulty, it has failed its purpose. In the next part, we will explore why real growth requires discomfort and why avoiding it under the name of kindness leads to long-term fragility. Pause here. Ask yourself honestly, who corrects me when I am wrong with myself? Then continue. Growth has always required discomfort, not pain for its own sake, not suffering as virtue, but effort that resists ease. Marcus Aurelius understood that nothing strong is built without tension. Muscles grow through resistance. Character grows the same way. Yet modern thinking often treats discomfort as something inherently harmful. If something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. If something requires effort, it must be damaging. This belief feels compassionate, but it is incomplete because it ignores how adaptation works. The mind does not grow in comfort, it stabilizes there. Growth happens at the edge of what you can tolerate, just beyond familiarity. Marcus Aurelius did not seek discomfort because he enjoyed hardship. He accepted it because he understood its function. Discomfort reveals weakness, not to shame, but to inform. It shows where attention is lacking, where discipline is underdeveloped, where habits are misaligned. Avoiding discomfort does not remove weakness, it hides it, and what is hidden cannot be strengthened. Modern self-care often teaches people to retreat at the first sign of resistance, to stop when something feels heavy, to disengage when effort appears. This trains the mind to associate discomfort with danger. Over time, tolerance shrinks. Small challenges feel overwhelming. Minor demands feel oppressive. Life does not become harsher. The mind becomes less capable. Marcus Aurelius believed that capability is the true goal of care, not constant ease. Capability allows you to endure without collapse. It allows you to face difficulty without losing dignity. Discomfort, when approached correctly, builds this capability. Not all discomfort is useful. Some signals injury, some signals exhaustion. Stoicism does not ignore these signals. It asks for discernment. Is this discomfort destroying me or strengthening me? Is this resistance a warning or an invitation to grow? This question requires honesty. And honesty is uncomfortable. But without it, growth becomes impossible. Marcus Aurelius warned himself not to mistake avoidance for wisdom. Wisdom does not flee effort. It chooses effort deliberately. Growth requires you to stay present when you would rather escape, to think clearly when you would rather soothe, to act with restraint when indulgence feels justified. This is not cruelty, it is maturity. In the next part, we will explore how to reclaim discipline without becoming harsh, and how real care balances strength with compassion. Pause here. Notice what you label as too much. Then continue. Discipline has a reputation problem. Many people associate it with harshness, with self-denial, with emotional suppression. Marcus Aurelius would have rejected this misunderstanding. He did not practice discipline to punish himself. He practiced it to remain clear. Cruelty toward the self is not discipline. It is frustration disguised as control. True discipline is calm. It does not shout. It does not threaten. It does not shame. It corrects. Reclaiming discipline begins when you stop confusing kindness with indulgence. Kindness asks, how do I support myself? Indulgence asks, how do I avoid discomfort? Discipline asks a different question. What response preserves my integrity? This question is firm, but not hostile. Marcus Aurelius believed that the self should be treated like something entrusted to you, not something to dominate, not something to abandon, something to guide. Guidance requires consistency, not emotional swings, not cycles of motivation and collapse, but steady expectation. When you fail, discipline does not attack. It adjusts. It says, that was not aligned. Let's correct. No drama, no identity crisis, just return. This is what most people misunderstand. They think discipline requires intensity, but intensity burns out quickly. Stoic discipline survives because it is sustainable. It does not depend on feeling strong. It depends on principle. Marcus Aurelius did not wait to feel motivated. He acted because acting was right. Over time, this creates trust. You trust yourself because you know you will respond with care and firmness. This trust replaces the need for constant self-soothing. You no longer need to justify indulgence with language. You simply choose alignment. Discipline without cruelty means allowing emotion without surrendering authority. You feel tired, but you do not abandon structure. You feel resistance, but you do not flee. You feel discomfort, but you do not dramatize it. This balance is rare, but it is learnable. And once learned, it changes how you move through life. You become quieter, more grounded, less reactive, not because you suppress yourself, but because you govern yourself. In the final part, we will close this reflection by drawing a clear distinction: honest care versus easy comfort, and why choosing honest care is the most respectful act you can offer yourself. Pause here. Notice where you confuse being gentle with letting yourself drift. Then continue. At some point, the difference becomes clear, not intellectually, experientially. You feel the gap between what comforts you and what strengthens you. Easy comfort soothes immediately. It lowers demand. It quiets tension. Honest care does something harder. It supports you while still asking for alignment. Marcus Aurelius believed that care without direction leads to drift, and drift over time becomes dissatisfaction. Honest care does not remove discomfort. It teaches you how to meet it without collapsing. It does not promise that you will feel good. It promises that you will remain intact. This is the difference most people never examine. They ask, "How can I feel better?" instead of asking, "How can I live more coherently?" Easy comfort answers the first question. Discipline answers the second. Marcus Aurelius did not believe that life should be made painless. He believed it should be lived well. Well does not always feel pleasant, but it feels solid. When you practice honest care, you stop negotiating with every emotion. You listen, and then you decide. You acknowledge fatigue, and then you choose proportionate rest. You recognize resistance, and then you choose appropriate effort. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is indulged. This balance is rare, and that is why it feels unfamiliar. Easy comfort feels kind because it asks nothing. Honest care feels demanding because it respects your potential. Marcus Aurelius respected himself enough to expect discipline, not perfection, discipline. And discipline, practiced calmly, creates something that comfort never can. Self-respect. Self-respect does not come from feeling understood. It comes from acting in alignment even when it is difficult. As this reflection ends, do not promise yourself change. Promises are fragile. Promise attention instead. Attention to the language you use to excuse yourself. Attention to the moments where kindness becomes avoidance. Attention to the quiet choice between ease and integrity. Because every time you choose integrity, you are practicing honest care. And honest care over time creates a mind that is steady, not numb, not harsh, but grounded. Pause here. And when you return to your life, return with respect for yourself.